Welcome in, everyone, to Let's Talk College Football. Today we are unveiling our first poll, our preseason poll, and let's jump right into it. Okay, here we go. So how we compiled this poll is we each put together our own top 25 list, and like the AP top 25 ballot, the number one team got 25 points all the way down to the number 25 team getting 1 point. So after we'd compiled all those and calculated the points, we just arranged them by who had the most points. So this is just the compilation of each of our three specific preseason polls that was compiled into the Let's Talk preseason poll. So let's get right into it. Landon, what do you see in that group 1 to 5?
Yeah, so top five, what sticks out to me the most is Michigan at number 2. And so that's either in undefeated Michigan, is what I'm predicting, honestly, because unlike these other top teams you noticed, other than FSU, they have their quarterback. They have JJ McCarthy. He's been with them. They're solid with him. They like him. And they have that star running back as well with Blake Corum, as well as the physicality and defense. So I'm liking Michigan at number 2.
Ethan, what sticks out to you 1 to 5?
Honestly, just to kind of piggyback off Landon's points about the quarterback situations for Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama, that's the question mark. Can those freshmen or those first year starters do it? I think that's the big question mark, because if those guys can produce, that 1 through 4 is probably gonna stay very similar. But if those guys can't produce and one of those 4 teams drops 2-3 games maybe, like that can really hurt them. And obviously they're not going to be in that college football playoff.
Yeah. What sticks out to me here 1 to 5 is just the placement of Alabama. I think that this is probably collectively the lowest the country's been on Alabama in quite some time. I mean, usually they're ranked number 1 or number 2, they're right there. And so I think Alabama being at 4, kind of gives Saban some bulletin board material to be able to, get back to the top. Okay, let's talk about the next clump of 5. Landon, what sticks out to you 6 to 10?
Yeah, so from 6 to 10, USC is the team that really sticks out to me here. Their defense was pretty bad the first week, and even though they have that electric offense, that defense could end up holding them back quite a bit in college football playoff hopes or even just preseason ranking hopes. And so while they have, in my mind, the best player in college football, I felt like the highest I could have them was 10 just because of that defense potentially holding them back.
What do you think, Ethan?
I really like Penn State this year. I think Drew Aller is going to be awesome. He 6'5" sophomore coming in, and his weapons he has in Nick Singleton and sorry, my throat. Nick Singleton he looks incredible. You saw him in the Rose Bowl. He was incredible as well. I really like their defense. It's going to be strong. It's fast. It's athletic. I have them being a big contender in the Big Ten this year, and I'm really excited to see what they can do versus the big opponents in Ohio State and Michigan this year.
Yeah, for me, what sticks out is Texas. I know that everyone watching this is going to be like, oh, Texas is back. These guys are drinking the Texas Kool-Aid. They're homers. But this is new for me. I have not been high on Texas in years past. I didn't think they were very good. I thought they were overranked. This is the first year that I feel like they actually have the talent to justify the ranking. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, Texas, they always have talent. But I'm not sure that was the case. They had a lot of skill players, but they didn't really have kind of the meat of a team where they had good depth on both lines. They didn't have those big bodies. They just had the 5-star receivers and the 5-star quarterbacks with no one to block for them, and no defensive players to make plays. But I think that Sarkisian has turned around recruiting there, and he's focused on kind of what's important, getting kind of the meat and potatoes per se of a team. And so I do think Texas is going to be really good this year.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next group.
I like it, T. I'm a Texas believer.
Yeah, me too. 11 to 15. What do you think, Landon?
So I can start us off here. I'm split between focusing on Oregon or Notre Dame. I think I'll go with Oregon. I think that a lot of national media is underranking this team quite a bit. They're returning a lot of solid talent in the trenches, both offensively and defensively, as well as Bo Nix, who I think will be in the Heisman conversation, and Bucky Irving, who I think is a premier running back, not just in the Pac 12, but the entire country. Pair that with a great first year of coaching from Dan Lanning. I think Oregon's poised to have a really good year and surprise a lot of people.
What about you, Ethan?
I like Notre Dame a lot this year as well. Again, they're one of those teams I'm very high on. And obviously, week 0, they played Navy over there in Ireland, and they pummeled them. But I really think Sam Hartman, six-year senior, is going to do really good for them. He is that veteran presence I think that Notre Dame was lacking under the Marcus Freeman era, and I think he allows them to kind of have that game controller that will help them just kind of not lose games. And I think he's a big contributor to a successful season for Notre Dame. And then I really like, again, their skills positions, especially Udrick Estime. He's a big back, 5'11", 230. Dude's massive, and he has a really low center of gravity. He was quick out there again against Navy. It's not your premier program, but I really liked what I saw out there.
Yeah, he looked great for sure. The team I want to talk about here is Tennessee. I think this is probably the biggest boomer bust team we've seen in the top 15 so far.
Yeah.
Where I think their top end is really, really high, but I also think they have a little bit lower of a floor than people are thinking. I mean, they lost Hendon Hooker, who was just an unbelievably good quarterback, and they're replacing him with another quarterback that has one of the strongest arms in the entire country in Joe Milton. Probably the strongest arm, maybe. But we don't know if they can recapture that magic exactly. Is it fair to them to expect them to put up kind of the same offensive stats that they did last year? I'm not sure it is. And so for me, I'll be really interested to watch Tennessee to see how their season goes this year, see if they can carry it over from a really successful 2022.
That'll be interesting to see how they pan out because they had such a good year last year. You can't disrespect them with a low ranking, but they also lost a really key player in Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they're going to be bad. I'm just saying that I think it's really interesting to watch Tennessee. I actually had them ranked higher than we have them here in the composite. Yeah. I just think it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together.
You also got to talk about the loss of Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Who's going to step up and be that wide receiver 1 for him?
Okay, let's move on to the next block. Landon, what do you see, 16 to 20?
I like the first thing that catches my eye, the Oregon State Beavers. Oregon State historically has not been a very good football program. With the huge transfer of DJU, I really think Oregon State is in a position to make some waves. They have a veteran defense. They're really strong in the trenches on both sides of the ball. The quarterback was honestly the missing piece for them. They have a super solid running back room. And I think that they just needed a quarterback who can make plays because they struggled to win some games because the offense was so one-dimensional. They couldn't pass. They could only run and play defense. I think this is going to be a really good season for Oregon State fans.
What about you, Ethan? What do you think?
I want to highlight Kansas State. If you talk to Kansas State fans, they'll say Will Howard is going to be a Heisman finalist. And don't get me wrong, I think he looked really good in his limited play. And I really like the team last year. Obviously, they got their butt handed to them against Bama, but they played really well in the Big 12 last year. But my question mark for them is how are they going to replace their production of Deuce Vaughn? Obviously, 1,500 yards last year is a big loss, and I think that's probably their biggest question mark. Is if they can replace that production, they can be good again. But I'm just not sure if it's even possible for them this at least year 1.
Yeah, I just want to highlight 2 teams really quick. The first being Oklahoma. I think everyone was really, really disappointed in a 6-7 season last year in Norman, Oklahoma. Brett Venables was kind of the guy after Lincoln Riley. Everyone, latched onto him after the loss of Lincoln Riley, and they were expecting a lot better, I think. Oklahoma this year has a very favorable schedule. I could see them turning it around, maybe not to the tune of winning the Big 12 or making the playoff, but to the tune of maybe 9 or 10 wins. So I'd say watch out for Oklahoma. The second team I want to highlight is Wisconsin. As many people know, they hired Luke Fickell from Cincinnati, who was a wildly successful coach there. Took them to the playoff and then got a really good job offer he couldn't turn down from Wisconsin. And he's bringing the air raid with him. He hired North Carolina's offensive coordinator, and they're going to run the air raid, which is going to be really weird to see in a Wisconsin team. So I'm interested to see how that goes. Okay, let's move on to the next block. So Landon, what do you see into this block, 21 to
So
25?
the first team I want to cover is Texas A&M. Obviously, they're an extremely good recruiter. Over the past 5 years, they're the 5th ranked recruiter. It's always just a question of if they can put that talent together. Because their top end ceiling is always so high just because of how good they recruit. It just seems like so often that potential is never fully realized. So this is a team I'm going to be watching for potentially a breakout year, a big breakout year, or maybe they have a little bit of a more disappointing season like they've been having the past few years. But I'll definitely be keeping my eye on them.
What do you think, Ethan?
A team I want to highlight, I would say, is UNC. I really like Drake May, but something that is probably a big question mark is going to be their wide receiver room. They got 2 transfers in that really kind of could help them in. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, I just had it in my. And Nate McKinnon and DeSantes Walker from Georgia Tech is Nate McKinnon, or McCollum, sorry, and Kent State is DeSante Walker. Yeah, losing Josh Downs and Antone Green is going to be big for them. Obviously, they combined for 1,800 yards, 18 touchdowns. You need guys that Drake May can pass to. So these 2 guys in the transfer portal, if they can step up, I think UNC is going to be pretty dang good again. But if they can't, it's going to be hard for them. And then obviously, I think that defense needs to improve. They've shown some signs, especially against Oregon in the Holiday Bowl. But I would like to see another gear from them. So that's my big question mark for UNC. What's holding them back?
Okay. Yeah, the team that I want to highlight is UCLA. I think I'm quite a bit higher on UCLA than a lot of people. I think that people see the loss of DTR and Charbonnet and go, there's no way that team is good. That team is destined to be bad. And I just don't think that's true with UCLA. I think they have a lot of talent. And they still have a good skill position group. The offensive line is so-so, but Chip Kelly has always worked well with that. Defense, I think they have a pretty good defense, honestly. One of the better ones in the Pac-12 I'd pick. And so I'd say as long as they can get adequate quarterback play, like I don't think that they're going to be just on the losing side of a ton of blowouts. I think that they'll be able to keep it close against the top teams. And I honestly think they're pretty good. So there we go. There was our top 25 reaction. Other teams receiving votes were Tulane, Mississippi State, Texas Tech, and South Carolina. Thank you all for listening. Please like and subscribe. Also, keep a lookout on Spotify. We're looking to get all of our videos up in podcast form on Spotify. So if you prefer listening on Spotify, just keep your eyes peeled and they will be posted there shortly. So thank you very much for watching.